We gon' be alright, right? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Huh? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
I keep my head up high, I cross my heart and hope to die. Loving me is complicated, too afraid of life changes.
Welcome, everyone. I am so happy to have you here. I actually think I just join every week for the music because I love it so much. I'm Dr. Kay Wise Whitehead, and I am the Special Projects Manager for the African American Policy Forum and a Professor of Communication and African American Studies at Loyola University, Maryland. Thank you for joining us for the weaponization of colorblindness, understanding the attacks on civil rights and DEI. Folks, our May 3rd National Day of Action and the launch of Freedom Summer 2024 is just 8 days away. And I am so excited that we are able to share space and strategize in the run-up to that special date. I'm just thrilled that you can all be with us for this very important conversation. We have so many exciting guests in our lineup today that there's no other space you would want to be other than right here. Trust me. In fact, tag a friend, invite them to join you over here in this space. As we begin our program tonight, I want to ask that you please share your name in the chat along with where you are joining us from. I'm joining you from the beautiful, beloved city of Baltimore. Drop where you're from in the chat. As we organize and strategize together during these homerooms, it is crucial for us to be in community with one another. So please use the chat function to keep the conversation going. I'm shouting out people. Ty Porridge, I see you. Peter, I see you. Leslie, I see you from Richmond, Virginia. Dawn from Chicago, I see you. Drop it in the chat. I got my eye on you, folks. I also want to encourage you to please fill out our sign-up form that we're dropping in the chat right now. Alternatively, you can access the form through the QR code. It should be on the screen right in front of you. Go ahead and use that, get the QR code, go into the chat, and we want you to fill out the form so you can tell us about what activation you have planned for May 3rd. See, once I started shouting people out, everybody jumped in. Lisa from South Carolina, I see you. I see Oakland's in the house. The first 50 people to complete the sign-up form this week will get a free T-shirt. Yes, you're going to get swag. Come on, Oakland, keep coming through. And if you won last week, your T-shirt is heading your way. Our job, our goal, we're working to get all of your T-shirts to you just in time for the May 3rd Day of Action, the National Day of Action. And just a quick note, when you fill out the form, please don't forget to fill out the address field. We need to know where you are so we can get your T-shirts for you. Later on in the program, I will be walking you through the specifics on how you can get activated. I will also be hosting office hours following the close of our program from 9:30 to 10 p.m., roughly at the end there, for those interested in learning more about our May 3rd activations. I'm seeing folks from Dover, Delaware, Bowie, Maryland's in the place. Hey, North Carolina. I now want to turn it over to Professor Kimberly Crenshaw to guide us through today's program. Kimberly Crenshaw is Professor of Law at Columbia University and UCLA. She is the co-founder and executive director of the African American Policy Forum. Kim, I'm coming to you from Baltimore. I'm excited to just push it away to you.
Hey, Kay, I'm coming right back at you from Montecito County, California. Got it in the background so people can get a little bit of this beautiful vista here. Good evening, everyone. We are so grateful to be in community once again and in this space of education, activation, and mobilization. So, folks, we are just 8 days away from our second annual May 3rd Freedom to Learn activation. So today, we want to highlight how the false logic of colorblindness has been used to undermine our civil rights infrastructure. Colorblindness has been a vehicle by which fringe authoritarian ideas have traveled to the center of American politics. Tonight, as a primer for next week's Freedom to Learn Day of Action, We're going to examine how colorblindness facilitates the unraveling of our civil rights. And we're going to offer some useful tips about how to contest colorblindness as we fight to take our country back. So let's look back a minute to 2020. Seems like ancient history. Remember when the twin pandemics of COVID and police violence opened up a window to see how structured forms of racism shape the lives and the risks of death faced by racially marginalized people? I just want us to remember that for a moment. In that moment, critical thinking about race was drawing people into the streets everywhere. In all 50 states, there were protests. 1 in 10 Americans put their bodies on the street to protest that continuing shadow of racism and its threat to our multiracial democracy. Now, I want you to contrast that memory with what's happening today, where systemic racism has been deemed to be a divisive concept, where it's been purged from curricula all over the country, even purged from AP African American Studies. This is happening in dozens of states. And as we predicted, the assault on CRT and on structural racism has now extended to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's now an epithet. Now, I hope you're asking yourselves, how in the world did this happen? How did anti-racism so quickly become a stand-in for discrimination against white people? As AAPF's co-founder Luke Harris frames the matter, the existential crises in equality law now is not the continued underrepresentation of people of color throughout society. No, that's not it. What it is the diminished overrepresentation of white people in colleges and universities, in businesses, and also in our nation's memory. Most importantly, of course, is the diminished overrepresentation of white men in the White House. One non-white occupant was enough to spark a moral panic. And we've been living in that moral panic ever since. Now, in order to make this backlash palatable, the right has hit upon using colorblindness as a cover. Their mantra is, let's just ignore race. Let's not speak about it. Let's not notice it. Let's not gather data about it. Let's not make any special efforts to include the previously excluded. Their vision of neutrality is to simply ignore how race still matters by acting as if it doesn't. Now, of course, the main objective is to cement existing disparities, to place racial equity outside of policy, outside of politics, outside of history. After all, you can't solve a problem that you can't legitimately name or notice. We wouldn't think, though, it's logical to take any other social problem outside of all legitimate discourse. We wouldn't say that being asbestos blind is a solution to brown lung disease. We understand that to address a problem, we have to have the tools, the prisms, in order to see it. Critical race theory is a package of tools like that, frames that we use routinely to understand how racially inequitable outcomes actually happen. Tools we use to clarify that we do not live in a colorblind world. But these tools and the stories out of which they've come are precisely what is being censored and put out of reach. Forced illiteracy is what anti-wokeness is trying to achieve. And nothing makes this clearer than Project 2025, a blueprint that would nationalize anti-woke censorship and policies, taking away the hard-fought concepts and policies that have helped to get us this far. Freedom to learn is all about fighting this extremism, but it isn't just extremists that we have to call out. We have to call in our allies, those who have too easily fallen into the colorblind trap. We need stakeholders in DEI to realize that they too are implicated in this onslaught. And we need to quickly figure out how our common interests come together in order to better defend the entire community, from civil rights and education to DEI and democracy. We have to leverage our differences to build sturdy bridges, to prepare for the battle for our children's future. And that's what we're all about in Freedom to Learn. We're so glad you joined us tonight. So with that, let's turn to our good, the bad, the ugly. This week in the Chronicles of a Nation Under Siege from Within. So first, let's start with the good. Now, who's heard of the widely touted headline that DEI programs unilaterally fail to produce results? They waste time, they waste money, and they do more harm than good. If you heard any of this, drop a note in the chat. Well, guess what? Research published this year by the American Productivity and Quality Center shows that this is simply not true across the board. The Important News Survey found that many organizations were seeing lasting and impactful change in their workplaces once DEI was implemented. Those who successfully used DEI practices were more likely to eliminate inequalities while increasing representation and belonging in their workplaces. This is why it is so important for us not to fall prey to false headlines, and why it's important for us to hold tight to the progress that we've made. If something isn't perfect, it doesn't mean that we should throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'm talking to you, Brother Charlemagne. Feel me? Now, alas, we have to follow up with the bad. So here's a story. Each year, the Metro Arts Commission in Nashville, Tennessee, dispenses millions of dollars to local arts organizations. But smaller organizations and individual artists have struggled to obtain their piece of the pie. So the commission tried to rectify this by coming up with funding formulas to provide a bigger boost to these smaller organizations and individuals. But unsurprisingly, the rich folks complained and tried to overturn the commission's decision using the recent ban on affirmative action in college admissions as their reasoning. Now, keep in mind, nothing in the new formula steered funding based on race. The formulas were based on organizational resources. If anything, they were class-based. But because the commissioners were shown a chart before the vote that detailed the class and race implications of the possible changes in the funding, and because the formula they chose ultimately closed the racial funding gaps more than any of the other options, those who always opposed the funding shift claimed that it might be an unlawful racial preference. Astonishingly, the city's legal department agreed. The commission reversed their decision, and the mayor, who campaigned as a progressive, has gone along. Now, the implications show the staggering consequences of weaponizing colorblindness. Any policy that might disproportionately benefit Black people or any other racially marginalized people could be grounds for reverse discrimination claims. Understand what this means. Any attempt to reduce racial disparities in any category, even by using race-neutral measures, could be prohibited, meaning that we are locking in and institutionalizing permanent racial inequalities. Remember, when you can't legitimately name a problem, well, by now, you know how to answer the rest. And worst of all, it's not just the MAGA folks protecting their turf that we have to worry about. It's the appeasing and, yes, the spineless allies who help do this work for them. With friends like these, right? And now the ugly. As the right accuses DEI, affirmative action, and critical race theory of being divisive on college campuses, contributing to the stifling of conservative voices, they're doing a 180 to crack down on free speech happening at Columbia University, USC, UT Austin, and numerous other campuses across the country. And if that's not divisive, to send in armed police to arrest peaceful demonstrators, perpetuating the slanderous myth that all critics of the war in Gaza, even Jewish critics who are taking a central role in these protests, are somehow anti-Semitic. If that's not divisive, I don't know what is. By celebrating the suspension of protesters, calling for the firing and prosecution of professors who support the students, the right proves that its concerns about indoctrination, divisiveness, and so-called cancel culture were always phony. What we are seeing here are laws, policies, precedents handed down by the old guard, including the Federal Society Sentinels at the Supreme Court, attempting to hang on to power in fear over our soon-to-be multiracial majority. We are facing the same generational challenges that confronted SNCC organizers during the Freedom Summer of 1964. And that's why the freedom to learn is so important now. It's not us that have been calling for the censorship of ideas, of books, of courses that some find objectionable. Freedom to learn is about opposing viewpoint litmus tests about what is acceptable to learn and what is not. It's about contesting the suppression of history and ideas, whether by the state or by private parties who are once again attempting to intimidate us into silence. We'll hear stories tonight about people who are standing up to this silencing, from North Carolina to Texas, from Arkansas to Southern California. This is about knowledge and inspiration for the road ahead. And no one represents this better than our organizational partner for tonight's program, Reverend Siobhan Arline Bradley. Reverend Arline Bradley is the president and CEO of the National Council of Negro Women. She's also my soror and friend. Welcome, Siobhan.
Can you hear me now, Kim?
We got you.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Freedom to Learn Network. Hey, family.
We're so happy to have you here. So happy to have you, and especially to talk about the historical work of the organization that you helm. So I think I probably mentioned this to you earlier, Siobhan. I recall that my grandmother was a part of the Black Women's Club movement.
Yeah.
I grew up looking at these pictures of these finely dressed Black women who came from, across all classes in Canton, Ohio. They all came together for these garden parties and other events that were fundraisers to support the education of their children, of Black children. Now, this is in stark contrast to another set of women. We're going to call them the Daughters of the Confederacy, who at the same time were trying to rewrite the history of the Civil War. And we have to say that they were considerably successful in doing so. Today, we've got new groups like Moms for Liberty who are taking up this repressive mantle. And we also have NCNW still fighting the good fight to resist. So given this history, why is NCNW so concerned about the spread of these educational censorship laws?
Well, first of all, it is an honor to be back with you. I see you all, Sisters and Soras, in the chat and NCNW family. Let me just offer two things. NCNW was founded as an organization of organizations, and the intent behind Bethune's gathering of these women, about 22 national organizations, the intention was to gather the women in order to change the policies and practices of a nation that continue to marginalize the Black women.
Right.
Mind you, 1935, the middle of the Depression, 1920 had already passed. There was a suffrage movement that did not include Black women. And
Mhm.
now we're seeing literally repeating history in 2024. We're 89 years old this year. We're 90 years next year.
Mm.
And the reason why NCNW has been now front and center
Mhm.
is because we're realizing that Black children are now going to be the beneficiaries of a new system that has literally tainted and retracted all of its progress. And
Mm.
so what we've seen, I'm a mom in a school district in Maryland that literally has these Mothers of Liberty
Mm.
that's showing up in my district.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
NCNW has said, oh, not on our watch, not when our founder knew that the women gathering was the reason why we pushed through policies and policy changes. And I
Mhm.
will tell you, our organization nationally has decided, and this is hot off the press, we're going to be working with Dr. Crenshaw's team to be able to get out this content to help with toolkits for families to understand when your children are being harmed. Our mission: lead, empower, advocate for women of African descent, their communities, and their families. That's why we're doing this.
Mm. Mm. And this couldn't be a better opportunity for us
Yeah.
to talk about what is missing in terms of being able to articulate what the harm to our children actually is. This
Yeah.
is not a victimless assault, right?
No.
Trying to erase our history. And one of the resources we're lifting up in the activation guide is meant to assist parents, and it's called, the Parent Voices Toolkit. We want to get the voices of Black parents into the national conversation. We want them to be able to speak to the harms that their children are experiencing and the aspirations that we have for our children that come from knowing our history and knowing who we are, rather than efforts to erase it. So how are you taking up this issue in the comprehensive civics education, both going into May 3rd, but we're trying to talk about this throughout Freedom Summer?
Yeah, throughout Freedom Summer and until freedom is won, right? I mean, we really are pushing this plan as two parts. First is to build on the Black history bands that we've seen in this country. And I'm calling them Black history bands, not just book bands, history bands. And our plan is to really expose the extreme school districts in this country, where we will bring in sections. Those are our chapters. We call them sections. We'll have them read, depending on their school ages of the children. Younger children will hear from our educators. Our goal is to bring them in to read from banned books. But here's the second part. The second part is Civics 101. But we realized we have a number of educators that are in our organization. And what we've realized is that many of our children are not learning the basics of understanding our overall political process, how bills are passed, how legislation is crafted, how you get to a bill being signed off, what is a veto, those kind of basic things. And so we believe that middle school students, late elementary and middle school students should have clarity on the Civics 101. So we're working with our programs and advocacy and policy team. And we personally reached out to AAPF to see how can we utilize the materials you have to help get the word out in some core markets across the country. And so our goal is to get that going this summer as we're preparing ourselves for the school year.
And that's the kind of partnership that we're talking about, right? Working together to identify that hole, identify that gap, and fill it. And it's so fitting and appropriate that this is part of Freedom Summer 2024, because that's what Freedom Summer was all about, right? It was about teaching about electoral politics. It was about civics, and it was educating and raising us into the recognition that this is our right, to reject these ideas that people of color, Black people in particular, had no role, no right, no reason to expect that we could be part of the democratic project.
Yeah.
Now, as my last question, I want to talk to you as Reverend Arline Bradley. And, you know, we know that one of the origins, one of the sites of this attack on racial justice came through the pulpit. It came through the denunciation of critical race theory and other forms of liberation ideology from
Yeah.
the Southern Baptist Convention in 2020. And, you know, I initially didn't really think much about it. I mean, it's kind of, I felt it was ironic. You know, my grandfather was, you know, a minister. My mother and my dad were ministers of music. I grew up in the church. I just sort of said, well, you know, that's that whole
them.
Southern Baptist thing. I ain't got to worry about it. But then last summer, Reverend Freddie Haynes identified for us that this is not just a problem of the white evangelical movement.
That's right.
He pointed out that the majority of Black ministers actually train at white seminaries where racial justice is described as divisive and not biblical.
Absolutely.
So as someone who's involved in the faith community, talk to us about why and what Black faith leaders are doing to speak up about the attacks on racial justice and the way religion is being used to justify this attack.
To justify and to weaponize, right? It is very interesting. I am trained under Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley. He is my pastor, the Alfred Street Baptist Church, who has been a massive public figure in advancing the role of justice in our church. And this is what we teach, and this is what I teach even as I interface with faith leaders, is that Jesus was the original civil rights leader of our time, right? He was the first one that flipped tables. He was the one that saw injustice in systems and decided that he would respond immediately. When he saw the injustice, he responded. He took action. He made sure that we fed the hungry, that we ensured that we took care of the widows and the children. And so what I've really been, quite frankly, hopeful. And I'll tell you why. Because I think many faith leaders have been taught a one-track mind theology. And they've never been able to get the opportunity to be ingrained in what I was trained in, which is Black liberation theology.
Right.
That Black liberation does not disconnect you from Jesus. It actually brings you closer to him. Because Jesus understood the marginalized. Jesus understood those that were without. And because I was born in a system that advanced oppression, it is my ancestors' understanding of a Jesus that will liberate you from your chains. And that is the beauty. That's the Jesus I believe in. That's the Jesus that I know. And faith leaders have to learn that this is not about exegeting in the wrong way. When we say exegete, we mean interpret in the wrong way. It means that we have to be practical in our theology. If you are a Black American in this country, you have a history that you can't erase. And that's embedded in the way that we live everyday lives. And our spirituality is affected by the way society has imparted in us. But the goodness and the greatness of Jesus that we preach about is embedded in his ability to free you from your chain, free you from your broken place. And the broken place has been the systems of this country. And I'm helping faith leaders understand your role is to not just speak on spirit, but to speak on spirit and truth. And truth is the experiences of a Black person in this country, a Black mother, a Black son, a Black husband, is that they have been through the fire. But the Jesus that we serve sees us, frees us, and then gives us power to overcome the system. That is the spirit, that is the truth, and that's what we want our faith leaders to understand. You can't say you love Jesus and don't love justice. It's the wrong Jesus.
I'm okay. We having church up in here.
Okay.
I'm seeing them. People.
I put my glasses back on so I can see. Girl. Woo.
You know, I've said this to you before, and I'm saying it again. When you get to church, call me. I'll be there. I will be there, sister. Listen, you know, it's always a pleasure, and I am so much in indebted to you for the leadership that you have shown, not only at NCNW, but
Yeah.
within our sorority, within the Divine
Absolutely.
Nine, within the civil rights. Y'all, she does it all within the civil rights community, and within the clergy. I am looking forward to once again talking to our clergy in hopes that on May 5th, on the Sunday after May 3rd, we will have clergy across the country lifting up the message that we just heard from you, Reverend Arline Bradley. Thank you so
Love
much.
you so much.
Love
Looking
you.
forward to what's next.
You know what? We're in it to win it. We are in it to win it. So we are now going to go to our snapshot across the country segment. And I am thrilled to welcome Angela Valenzuela. Angela is a professor at the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy at the University of Texas at Austin. She's here to share with us what's happening on the ground at UT Austin with the firing of more than 60 employees who used to work in the DEI programs. This has just recently happened. So, Dr. Valenzuela, we're very grateful for you to have you join us. Now, tell us about this. It's just astonishing for a university to lay off 60 employees in one area, but especially when it comes to DEI and DEI in Texas. So can you paint us a picture of the actual, human costs of this decision? I think a lot of people don't have a sense, first of all, what DEI folks do. And they don't have a sense of now what's happening when this war on DEI amounts to mass firing. So paint a picture for us of what is actually happening.
Yeah, thank you. First, love invoking Jesus and spirituality. We need that Christ consciousness. We need that unity consciousness, because at base of what is happening is that othering, right? That othering and treating people as less than, and agreeing that that's an okay way of knowing and being in the world. And that's what we see at the base of all of this, is just a real supremacy, right? A real horrible kind of politics that makes these scorched earth practices acceptable in some corner of the universe, certainly not ours. So this has been devastating for us at UT Austin, with reverberations that go far beyond the 60 plus people that have been terminated. These are individuals who are basically, they've been basically banished. These are what I'm calling the politics of banishment, scorched earth policies that were educators, they were mentors, they were pillars of our community. I mean, they were friends, they were colleagues, and a number of them just shy of retirement with family responsibilities, paying for kids in college and home mortgages. And they were also people that that were in our doctoral and master's programs, including at least four in our program in my college. I'm sure there were others, but I just know about four. And so this is a blow. This is a blow directly to them. I also believe it's a blow to our mission and our integrity as an institution. Students have been understandably very upset. They've formed a Senate Bill 17 coalition. That was the bill that made this legal. The closing and shuttering of DEI offices, of trainings, of that kind of allyship training that they would do. The students had pamphleted the whole university with "Not Our Texas," just sort of talking back to administrators in the legislature that made these policies effective. And they're also very much involved in carrying out other actions. But yes, very, very harmful. I call it a scorched earth kind of policy that, thanks for naming Project 2025. I do fear that every state will become Texas if Trump gets elected.
Mm-hmm.
And Project 2025, all you got to do is keyword eliminate and abolish, and it'll come up multiple times. Laura Trump herself, the RNC co-chair, is saying that if Trump wins, of course she wants him to win, that using those exact terms, scorched earth, is what will represent the administration of the following administration.
And there's so much to that. I mean, this is one of these moments where we don't have to, try to intuit what their intentions are. Scorched earth. They are telling us that they want to destroy our presence in these institutions. They are clear about what their objectives are. Yet, it's kind of been difficult to get traction within our stakeholder communities as to what is actually happening. I think even worse is the fact that they're not done. I mean, some people think we'll just give them this and they'll go away. But what we know is that this is a monster that has an insatiable appetite. So even with these cuts to jobs and programs, we know that the Texas legislature wants to go even further. We're reading that they sent a letter giving administrators a deadline to submit proof of how they are going to eliminate and abolish DEI. And ironically, that deadline is May 3rd. So given everything that we're seeing, the repression of speech, the elimination of DEI, the anti-immigration policy that we're seeing enacted along with anti-DEI, why should everyone across the country be concerned about what is happening in Texas?
Yeah, I think we should all be concerned about what's happening in Texas. I think a way to, think about this, to process this, is that ending DEI has implications for a very diverse state, and will have the most and greatest implications for the most diverse states in the nation. And so rooting out the only way that people in those states have to diversify their institutions, DEI has been effective in diversifying our institutions. And rooting that out is to basically take away all the many ways that we've benefited from DEI, and just damaging that sense of belonging. Another way to think about this is that in states like Texas, that they're bellwether states, they have an electorate that will soon be majority non-white. So if you impact the vote in Texas through a denial of educational opportunities and through the miseducation of our youth, such as the taking down of African American studies through as the passage of critical race theory legislation, and now DEI takeovers. Houston was just taken over. If you pursue these routes to root out minority voters, minoritized voters, then you do impact the leadership and the economic well-being and future, not just of our state, but our country as a whole, in great part because our state is very large and very impactful. Again, if Trump gets elected, every state becomes Texas. Do read Project 2025. And for UTs, I want to say that we could very well use AAU status, the American Association of Universities, because a proposal is floating out there to impact governance. I mean, we have governance, and our faculty, even just today, has lashed out against the use of military against protesters yesterday. So governance, we do have faculty governance. We can always improve governance, but yeah, like you said earlier, you don't want to end it, you want to mend it, and without which we'll become the Hillsdale of the South.
And that is the objective, right? It is the objective of creating, a educational system that serves one group of people, that serves one religion, that serves one class, that serves, basically one gender, and everybody else is meant to assimilate. That's what we are against. So thank you so much for joining us. I told you I was going to reach out to you. I bet you didn't think it was going to happen this quickly. So we're very grateful to have you part of us, and we hope to work together next week on May 3rd. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So folks, I think it's time for Artivism break. What do y'all think? So I'm really excited to bring this next artist to you. I just saw her phenomenal work. Yes, her mom, showed it to me. She's a Sands of mine. I want you to welcome Nia Nunn. She will be reading a special poem she wrote specifically for us tonight called Dear Black Child. Dr. Nunn is an artist and an activist. She is an associate professor of education and psychology at Ithaca College and part of the board of directors of the Southside Community Center. Nia, welcome to the stage.
Greetings, greetings. Thank you so much for this glorious invitation. All right. Know that you deserve a liberated learning, a yearning, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of self, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of generational wealth, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of authentic community health. Lusciously locked into literacy, all the banned books, please, all of the beauties. When we can honor your learning style, you wear a kind of ancestral smile, dear Black child. Dismantling DEI, denouncing affirmative action, banning all these books should encourage your attraction. The attempts to dismiss us, oh so chronic, deeming us in servitude is oh so hegemonic. Twisted desires for destruction, days upon days. What is the real source of these wicked ways? Am I tripping? Going insane? Is this not another attempt to capture and colonize the Black brain? Lessons of lies, direct instruction to despise, a mythical meritocratic orientation, the ultimate objective, that first movie, Birth of a Nation. Thomas Jefferson still receiving curricular praise. He mapped out the blueprint for some of today's most wicked ways. Am I tripping? Going insane? Is this not another attempt to capture and colonize the Black brain? Taught time and time again that our very existence is some kind of sin. Know that you deserve a liberated learning, a yearning, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of self, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of generational wealth, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of authentic community health. Lusciously locked into literacy, all the banned books, please, all of the beauties. When we can honor your learning style, you wear a kind of ancestral smile, dear Black child. Stay awake, pay attention to all elements of strategy. Stay awake, pay attention, let us demand our rights through pedagogy. I'd rather Zoom than carry a gun into a classroom. A true sickness. Study multiple centuries, just witness an obsession with causing distress, attempting to replace anti-racism with anti-oppression and anti-marginalization. How are you having a conversation about the latter two without a face displaying a race? Weaponizing color blindness, celebrating ignorance, straight up denial, put color consciousness on trial. Student and faculty protests, campus unrest, voices suppressed. Still, our ancestors warned us. Dr. Dorothy Cotton, Malcolm X, our ancestors warned us. This is not in school text. Our ancestors warned us the layers of apartheid. Our ancestors warned us of the potential genocide. No education can hide, subside, disconnect, disrespect. You as young people sit on ready to protect because you know you deserve a liberated learning, a yearning, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of self, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of generational wealth, hungry for knowledge, knowledge of authentic community health, lusciously locked into literacy, all the banned books, please, all of the beauties. We can honor your learning style. You wear a kind of ancestral smile, dear Black child.
Mm, mm, mm.
Me too, Kim. Me too.
Lusciously locked into literacy. Oh, thank you.
Such an honor, such a joy. I thank you for this invitation. That came out today for
Oh,
you. I'm grateful.
are we being fed? Kay, are we being fed?
We are being fed. I was hungry when I sat down, so I'm definitely being fed in this moment.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Boy.
Okay, that took us to another level, entire another level. Okay, tossing it back to you.
I have to step in here. I feel like I'm just elbowing my way into the space because the moment that we're in with that beautiful poem, so eloquent, so bold, it reminded me that there's something we need to do, Kim. I have to remind people by popping back in here to encourage you to please fill out our sign-up form. Did y'all see what I did there? Connected that poem to doing some action. This is the sign-up form. We are dropping it in the chat right now so you can tell us about what activation you have planned for May 3rd. You can either use the code or you can use the QR code on the screen or what's in the chat box. And please remember to hit send once you have completed the form. I know you probably started filling it out. You got caught up in the poem. Go back to it. Make sure you click send after you fill out the address field so we can get your t-shirt to you. The first 50 people to complete the sign-up form this week will get the Freedom to Learn t-shirt. You'll have swag. Later on in the program, I'm going to walk you through the specifics of how you can get activated for May 3rd. I will also be hosting office hours right after our program for about 30 minutes or so for those interested in learning more about how you can get activated. Kim, I'm bringing you back to the table and tossing it back to you.
Thank you, Kay. I'm still basking in being lusciously locked. Woo! Okay. So with that, I am exceptionally excited to welcome Sean Harper and Nicholas Espiritu to help us understand how the attacks on DEI are linked to the broader attacks on civil rights. Sean is the Provost Professor of Business Education and Public Policy at the University of Southern California's Race and Equity Center. Nick is the Deputy Legal Director of the National Immigration Law Center. Friends, welcome both of you to the program. So Sean, I'm going to start with you. One of the ways that the attacks on DEI have been so successful is the fact that much like CRT, the witch hunt was created around the term that relied on misinformation, disinformation in order to sustain it. So you've often spoken about the big lie about DEI, what that big lie represents. Can you share what the big lie is and what the truths that the big lie erases are?
Of course I can. Professor Crenshaw, my friend, thank you for your leadership and thanks for involving me in this very, very important movement. Yeah, listen, how much time we got? Because it is a very big lie. Let me lay out at least 5 components of that lie. They're not the only 5, but one of the 5 myths, if you will, is that DEI efforts in educational institutions and in corporations and everywhere else are divisive, that they seek to divide people. That's just frankly untrue. In fact, those programs, policies, and efforts attempt to bring people together across the various diversities and identities and experiences that they bring. The second really big lie is that too much money is being wasted and spent on DEI. Listen, I work with hundreds of corporations and I am in their books. I know what their budgets are. It's almost criminal. I often say to myself, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, given the amount of money that this company makes and how little you're investing in DEI. Listen, Kim, I'm talking global multinational companies. with a $50,000 DEI budget?
Oh, come
How?
on now. Come on.
How?
That's like,
Right.
that's a coffee budget.
Right. So that's one of the myths that, all this money is being spent. Let me give you another one. Another one is that all these DEI programs in K-12 schools, higher ed institutions, corporations, in the military, that they're all the same. How can they be all the same? They cannot be all the same, right? DEI is not just one thing. The people, the professionals, the experts who lead these efforts, they design them in response to the challenges, needs, realities, and expectations of that particular context. I can
Right.
tell you right now, what we are doing in the name of DEI at USC ain't the same
Same.
as what y'all doing right across town at UCLA.
Right.
All right, okay, listen, I promise 5. Let me just, I'm gonna stop at 4. Here's the last one that I think is just especially absurd. Another one of these myths is that too woke DEI professionals have just taken over companies and campuses. How? Right?
Yeah.
When we look at the racial and ethnic demographics of organizations,
Mhm.
it's like a gradation. The
Mm.
higher you go, the wider it gets. The people who are
Yeah,
most
man.
heavily concentrated in the lowest level, lowest authority roles are people of color. We ain't got that much power to
Mhm.
take over,
Mhm.
right? And yeah, I listen, I could go on and on because the lie really is,
And you
way.
know what? We probably need to have you come back regularly. Give us the lie of the week. Give us the myth of the week about DEI. Well, let me follow up with this question, and maybe you can give us a couple more. I think what's interesting about some of the lies that you set out is that the opponents of DEI would say that we need color blindness instead of race consciousness. But of course, most of the lies and the myths themselves are race conscious, right? They are not colorblind. But look, your truths expose how color blindness actually reinforces race inequality. So why is color blindness such a threat to the important work that DEI actually does?
Yeah, color blindness kills. There was a congressional hearing on March 7th about the so-called divisiveness of DEI initiatives on college campuses. And one of the expert witnesses was calling for the elimination of DEI in the curricula in medical schools.
Ugh.
Well, certainly that is guaranteed to exacerbate the maternal mortality crisis.
Yes.
Guaranteed to exacerbate it, right? Listen, color blindness seeks to erase people of color, our histories, our cultural contributions, just our existence in organizations. It also won't fix current or historical racial inequities. A colorblind approach is not going to fix the mess that racism has made over generations, over centuries, right? And then furthermore, racism itself isn't colorblind.
Right.
So colorblindness ain't gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who are, sort of ambivalent about, our critique of colorblindness, understand this. If Project 2025 comes into reality, if it becomes the policy brief for a possible Trump presidency, they're using colorblindness to go after EEOC policies and practices, to go after basically Title VII itself. There is no end to this. There is no, let's just go back to some kind of equilibrium. There is no such thing as that. That is where they are going. So, Sean, thank you for starting us with a template of the lies. We certainly want to keep generating them, so when people see them, they can identify it. It's our own little red pill to wake up to what is the lie around colorblindness. I want to transition just for this next section to Nico, because there's also a story that needs to be told about how the attack on so-called woke policies, practices, histories, and narratives also began some time ago. We know that the attacks on CRT and now DEI were previewed by attacks on Mexican American studies and on Chicano students in Arizona. Yeah, there is a history to this. So can you tell us a bit more about the genesis of these attacks and how they predicted the anti-CRT, anti-woke measures that we've been struggling with in recent years?
Gladly. So for folks that don't know, the Tucson Unified School District, which is in southern Arizona, had instituted a program called the Mexican American Studies Program in response to a desegregation order that had been issued about a decade earlier. And so the goal of the program was to increase the educational attainment and opportunities of the Mexican American students in that program who had been underserved under the previous regime prior to the desegregation order. And so it had been a resounding success. They had seen that the academic scores and other indices of academic success had increased dramatically for the students participating in the program. However, during the mid-2000s, Arizona began to see a wave of anti-Latino actions by government officials, including voter ID and voter registration restrictions, including Arizona's notorious SB 1070, which was enacted the same year as the attempts to ban the Mexican American Studies program. And then finally, the pervasive racial profiling and targeting of Latinos by Arizona's largest law enforcement agency, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. So this was part and parcel of an effort by many political actors in Arizona to go after what they saw as the emerging political power of Latinos in that state. The demographics had been changing, and so Arizona had passed a law very similar to what we're seeing now, including kind of the draft version of the divisive concepts that are now being employed.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that we see from these patterns is where there is an attack on the growing political power of a traditionally marginalized group, there is also an attack on their ability to learn, their ability to speak, their ability to name. The two, go hand in hand. This attack on Mexican American studies doesn't really make sense without the anxieties that are expressed in the desire to contain Latino populations, in particular political power. One of the things that is important to lift up about these studies is that often the critics say, it's not legitimate. It's basically just research. It's false stuff. It makes people feel good. It's miseducation. When in fact, the studies show that students who graduated from the program were more likely to matriculate into higher education, more likely to succeed in their profession. So notwithstanding the fact that this was an avenue to achievement, the critics wanted to dismantle it. So what is this telling us about the recent attacks on ethnic studies, more, sort of broadly cast? What do we need to draw from this to understand what's going on in campuses and schools nationwide?
I think one important thing to draw from this is much like what was happening with the Mexican American Studies program, what we're seeing with regards to the attacks on DEI and CRT now is a response to the increased politicization and political power of Black and Brown communities in response to the series of horrific incidents that we saw in terms of police brutality, especially on Black bodies. And so I think that this is once again born out of a fear that that as they're seeing the voice of previously unheard communities become emergent within political discourse and in academic spaces, there's a need to minimize that, because those voices are calling into question all of the assumptions which structure our institutions and our systems of power.
Yeah. So if you're set on trying to reinforce, I've earlier said that this was constitutionalizing an inequitable status quo. You take away the tools, you take away the literacy, the language, the words to actually contest that status quo. It's like the oldest, kind of trick in the book for maintaining a subordinated, population. Sean, I want to come back to you, because while we've been talking about these attacks, the legislative attacks, the ability to try to use the law to suppress ideas and consciousness that they don't like and elevate a story that they do like. There's also the question about how the media contributed to this supposed divisiveness around DEI, the supposed divisiveness around, these concepts in CRT. So, there's so many stories, many of them apocryphal, or uplifting a bad DEI training as a way of characterizing the entirety of the field. So we saw that. And then we saw a lot of people, particularly DEI people, trying to outrun the ban on CRT by saying, "Oh, yeah, we don't do that. That's not us." So you are a DEI scholar, a practitioner, and a critical race theorist. Can you tell us, from your vantage point, why that effort to pivot, not talking about me, just wasn't successful? And what lesson do we learn from it in terms of the need to defend racial and social justice work?
Yeah, I think the major takeaway here is that white supremacists will use any tool at their disposal, call it CRT, call it DEI, whatever you call it, right? They're going to weaponize it and tell lies and spread lies about it. So you're right. Folks who attempted to distance themselves from CRT with the aim of preserving DEI ultimately failed, because the attackers don't care what you call it. It's the justice that they're coming after. It's the inclusion that they're coming after, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. It did work.
It worked. And now the question is, now that we said, look, they're trying to, huff and puff and blow all our houses down. The idea that, oh, I don't live in that house, hasn't saved us. And so now the question is, what knowledge have we learned from this recent history in order to help us build a more powerful, integrated, coherent movement to protect the freedom to learn? So you've been in this field for a while. Is there a takeaway that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, well, first, I think that solidarity and coalition building is essential to the protection of our democracy. It's why I'm so grateful, Kim, that you are leading in the ways that you're leading. And, there's so many other folks around the country, including us at the USC Race and Equity Center, right? So I think the coalition is really important, setting tables of people who know better, people who have the facts, who have the evidence, who have the data, and, aggregating all of those truths and spreading it using social media, digital media, and all of the other media tools that are available to us, I think, are important. I also think that this particular fight deserves an all hands on deck approach, which is what we're taking at my center. Every day in everything that we're doing, we are using our privileged position to help people understand what's true and what isn't true, and what is at stake for our democracy. The last thing that I'll say, Kim, that I think is important is that money is needed to fight back, because
Say that again.
Money, the coin is essential, right? Because the other side of this fight is incredibly well funded. So one of the things that we launched at the USC Race and Equity Center is what we call the National DEI Defense Fund. And we're using that money to buy books in places where books have been banned, and students deserve and should have the freedom to learn, right? We're using it to provide free or extraordinarily low cost professional development for teachers and educators and school leaders in places where the governors have banned spending on that stuff. We're deploying experts to states to testify in state legislative hearings. They don't pay you to come to places, right? It costs money. And then we're also funding research. We are not going to give up on the truth. And the truth comes through the production of very rigorous research. So yeah, those are just a handful of ways that I think, folks can help in this moment.
Yes. And I'm so glad you named that, right? Because that's often the elephant in the room. Like, this work, of course we do it because this is generational, threats that we're talking about. And so we have no choice but to do it. But we are doing it up against a Goliath that has unlimited resources. So, if you're trying to figure out how to get involved, what to do, support the organizations that are bringing this information, support the research that's necessary to fight back against the misinformation and the distortion, and support the capacity of people to be able to fight. That's how we've gotten into this situation, because of the huge asymmetry in resources, and we're not going to get out of it unless we can figure out how to manage to do more of this work. Thank you so much, Dr. Harper. I'm going to come to you, Nico, to close us out. Given what Dr. Harper has outlined about the money and the power on the other side, as an immigration rights advocate, tell us about the font of so much of this, horrible policy. We know that we have the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, coming down, the pipeline. What do we need to know to understand why we have to be wary of Project 2025?
I think there's probably too much to go over in
900 pages, right?
But I will highlight some of the really troubling parts that emerge as they relate to the topics that we're talking about. I think, first of all, we do have to understand that they're coming for DEI and race consciousness to strip it out of all areas of government, from the military to the schoolhouse. And they have plans to do it through every department that will be at their disposal. And it's in there in every section. The second thing that I think we really need to pay attention to is the way they want to reshape government to undermine civil rights protections. They're proposing radical things like elimination of the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights and stripping out for any form of disparate impact analysis from Title VII, Title VI, or any of the existing protections. And then even more broadly, they're suggesting things like doing away with programs to help low-income students have a pathway to college, saying that this isn't the role of government. They see government as fundamentally opposed to, I think, how we would want it, which is to serve the people, especially the most vulnerable. And look, and maybe I'll just close out by saying Project 2025 is terrifying on its own, but it is not the end of the analysis. It is maybe just the tip of the iceberg. It's the things they think they can do under the current legal regimes. They have more planned that would severely undermine who we are as a country and who gets to participate in our basic democratic institutions, from undermining birthright citizenship to issues like denying K-12 education to undocumented students, which would eliminate their ability to really participate as full democratic members of society when and if they're able to become citizens. So I think that what we're doing here to remain vigilant about being able to speak truth to power and being able to educate ourselves is foundational to pushing back against all of these other efforts that we see within Project 2025 and beyond.
Nico, thanks so much for making the threat so clear and also making it clear that this appetite, isn't subsumed within those 900 pages. What they're trying to do has no limits. And if folks think, well, that's too extreme, that'll never happen, just think about how today we're dealing with things that people thought would never happen. And now it's the law of the land. 25 million school children go to schools where they can't learn the true and full history, of the United States. So if that can happen, it can certainly happen that the right to public education can be stripped from immigrant children, and that American citizenship can be stripped. We have to remember, American citizenship wasn't initially based just on who was born here. That had to be created, and it's easy for it to be lost again. So, Nico, thank you so much for making it clear to all of us what we're fighting for, and thank you, Dr. Harper, for naming the things that need to be named. So next, I want to welcome back Jocelyn Walker, the Vice President of Communications at the African American Policy Forum, for our comms tip of the week. Jocelyn.
Thank you so much, Professor Crenshaw. Hi, everyone. If you've been with us on the road to May 3rd with our weekly homerooms, you know that I start off with a recap from the previous week. So in case you missed it, last week I spoke about the how of a communication strategy, how to sound the alarm on social media to create this larger narrative for the Freedom to Learn and Freedom Summer 2024. Tonight's fourth communication tip will focus on the why and the when of a digital communication strategy. And I'm really excited to share some of our assets for you all to use. So let's jump in, starting with why is it crucial to share on social media? So looking at some of these examples, we see that billionaire dark money funded the conservative infrastructure that brought us attacks on critical race theory and DEI at all levels of education and government. And social media is a large piece of this infrastructure, as we see here. Looking at these tweets and the engagement, this is what we are up against. And so here's where you all come in. We created this Freedom to Learn social media toolkit to guide everyone as you post on social media, utilizing graphics, suggested copy, and of course our hashtags. And we've made it easy to counter the rights narrative with these compelling infographics. So right now you can actually start by downloading a set of infographics about critical race theory, DEI, Project 2025, or Freedom Summer, and share them across social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And be sure to use our hashtags Freedom to Learn and Freedom Summer 2024 on your post. We are nearly a week away from our National Day of Action on May 3rd. And so we've also made it easy to get the word out about May 3rd with these compelling graphics. So please download your favorite from these options and share to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook or LinkedIn tomorrow, which is 1 week from May 3rd. And lastly, pull out your Twitter fingers and use the following copy and hashtags to show that the fight for our schools is the fight for our lives. And really, because Twitter is really where a lot of what we're seeing the right share their misinformation and disinformation that we've been talking about. And so it's really important for us to counter it with these facts, with our messaging. And, maybe we can even make our hashtags a trending topic. And so that's what we're really leading up towards. When you go to the toolkit, you can copy and paste these ready to go tweets to get the word out. And I want to end by saying it's never too late, too early, or too often to post on social media about important issues. So tomorrow, please join us in making a 1 week away post for May 3rd using one of our Freedom to Learn graphics. You can also uplift what African American Policy Forum has posted, and of course, use our hashtags Freedom to Learn and Freedom Summer 2024. Thanks so much, and I will hand it back to you, Professor Crenshaw.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. So look, Jocelyn made a challenge to us. We want to be trending. We want the 1 week out to become a trend. So look, we have the ability to do it. We just have to commit that that's what we're going to do. So that means everybody listening who has presence on social media, use that presence, but more importantly, get other people to do it as well. This is one of the lowest hanging fruits that we can gather and use in order to lift up freedom to learn. So let's all be sure to do that over the next 24 hours. We're a week out from May 3rd. So now I want to pivot to what has increasingly become a favorite homeroom segment, White Lies Matter, with Tim Wise. Tim Wise is among the most prominent anti-racist writers and educators in the United States. So Tim, coming to you, you wrote a book back in 2010 called Colorblind, which looked at the way that post-racial politics and the erasure of racism as a focal point among liberals had helped facilitate this retreat from racial equity in public policy. Now, we see the right is being emboldened by that retreat and by the notion that it's possible to be neutral or universal in our thinking rather than looking specifically at racial injuries and existing power dynamics. So tell us how this false neutrality and colorblindness are playing out now when it comes to free speech battles on campus. Is there a parallel here that we should ponder?
Well, there definitely is, at the most basic level, right? The underlying logic of the new colorblindness and the problems with it are paralleled in the way that the right comes at the free speech issue and the way that we're seeing it play out during the Gaza protest, right? So with colorblindness, they're saying, in effect, power dynamics don't matter, history doesn't matter, the inertia of years of institutionalized white supremacy doesn't matter, and the head start that afforded to white people isn't something we should think about at all when it comes to public policy. Just let everyone run the race. And as long as there are no new or formal impediments to running it, even if the effects of past impediments haven't been addressed, then no harm, no foul. That's their argument. And of course, the effect of that, as you've talked about all evening, is that it locks in all those pre-existing inequities in a way that maintains white racial dominance without having to actually do anything to anyone directly, right? With the free speech debate, these same folks are basically saying the same thing. They're saying power dynamics don't matter and history doesn't matter. Everyone should just be free to say what they please, which sounds nice, but it presumes that everyone's ability to be heard is on a level playing field, right? And it's not. So students of color, LGBTQ students, and currently Palestinian students and their supporters on campuses, they've never had the same kind of freedom to speak their mind, at least not if their words offend the powers that be, right? So with an issue like Israel-Palestine, the narrative in this country, in the US for decades, has been Israel good, Palestinians bad, Zionism good, and anyone who questions it, even a Jew who does that, as I do, is somehow anti-Semitic, right? And once those binaries are established, to say, well, free speech for everyone, that ignores how pro-Palestinian speech has been pre-stigmatized, right? Before anyone even opens their mouths. It's pre-stigmatized. It's presumed to be terroristic. It's presumed worthy of being censored or repressed as inherently violent in a way pro-Israel speech wouldn't be, right? Like you cannot fathom, for instance, that Columbia or UT Austin or Emory or USC would have sent cops in to arrest Jewish students if they had set up encampments to demand more action against anti-Semitism. There's no way that cops are called in to clear that. And that's not because there's some conspiratorial favoritism toward Jews, right? But it's because free speech neutrality only works when everyone's on a level playing field. And in this case, the pro-Israel side has a pre-existing presumption of legitimacy, right? And that amplifies their position, even as the other side fights to be heard amid mischaracterizations, outright slanders, and even violence, as we're seeing right now at the hands of law enforcement.
Yeah. So we're looking at a parallel, we're looking at overlapping ways that power dynamics shape what is seen as legitimate, what is seen as not legitimate, what's seen as freedom, what is not seen as implicating values of freedom. What's interesting to me in much of this is the way that people claiming to be content neutral or the way people claiming to be colorblind are clearly not. So aside from the fact that these neutrality frames are problematic, I am thinking back to the example that you raised for us in the Nashville Arts Commission before. So what else can you tell us about that Nashville Arts Commission, what it is illustrative of, and what do we need to know as opponents of coercion, of opponents of subordination? What is it that they're doing that we need to take a lesson from?
Well, I think the thing we need to realize is that even though they are proclaiming themselves to be colorblind, and in the case of the Arts Commission, suggesting, we just want to give out the money in a colorblind way, and we don't want to steer it to certain people because, God forbid, we might get sued for reverse discrimination. That's their argument, bogus legal argument, but that's the one they're making. Yet the important point to keep in mind is that when they proclaim themselves to be operating on a colorblind principle, they're really not. They're actually very color conscious, right? The opposition to making the arts funding in Nashville much more equitable, when you look at it, it's pretty obvious that beneath the veneer of this race neutrality is a pretty clear racial antipathy toward folks of color, the small arts organizations and individuals of color who would have benefited disproportionately from the funding shift. So for instance, as just one example of this, consider something that one of the arts commissioners said, a guy named Will Cheek, very prominent Nashville family connected to Cheekwood, which is the botanical gardens. Then they're one of the biggest recipients of arts funding in Nashville and have been for a very long time. He and his friends are all tied into the other legacy arts organizations, the wealthy groups that stood to lose a little bit of money, not much. I'm sure they were going to be okay. I offered to do a bake sale for them if they really needed me to, for like the opera, whatever. I'll set up a table. It's fine. And this guy, Will Cheek, when this was all sort of coming to a head, was interviewed, and this is what he said, and this lets you know how not colorblind he is and how color related the opposition was. He said, quote, "I'm not sure I ever saw a list of who the recipients were and what their projects were and who approved them and who's supervising the grants. For example, if you received a $10,000 grant, who's following up with you to see what did you do? Did you go to Kroger to shop for groceries, or did you put on the arts production you supposedly were going to do with the money?" End of quote. I mean, he is basically accusing these artists of being like welfare cheats or something, right? It's like talking about people buying filet mignon with food stamps, that old thing that we've all heard for like 40 years, right? And it's clearly racialized because remember, the reason Cheek said he was worried about reverse discrimination lawsuits is because the recipients were going to be, in his mind, a bunch of Black and brown folks. So what he's saying is, who are these Black and brown people? And can we really trust them to spend our money correctly? So he's not colorblind, right? He sees color very clearly, at least every color but white. He misses that. And he seems to miss how whiteness has permeated arts funding in Nashville for generations. That's what colorblindness does. It doesn't actually fail to see color. It sees color the minute it walks into the neighborhood, the minute it walks into the classroom, the minute it walks in for a loan at the bank. What it doesn't see is itself. It doesn't see whiteness. It doesn't see the dominant color. And that's why that hierarchy continues to remain in place.
Y'all, what we call that segment, mic drop. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for unpacking it. You always make it clear, you make it plain, you make it accessible, and now we can repeat it because now we know it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now for our activation segment and a very special interview and spotlight, I'm going to turn it over to you, Kay. Take it away.
Thank you. So that was a mic drop. I'm going to pick the mic back up to use this as a moment to remind you that you need to fill out our sign-up forms. You see what I'm doing here? I'm connecting it all together for you. We're dropping it in the chat right now, so you can tell us about the activation you have planned for May 3rd. You cannot listen to Tim Wise drop it down and not think about, well, what am I going to do next week? You can also use the QR code on the screen. Please don't forget to hit send once you've completed the form. The first 50 people. And B-Bay is saying, where can we get those shirts? B-Bay, I hear you. Please don't forget to hit send once you've completed the form, because if you're one of the first 50, you will get your free swag, your t-shirt. but we need you to make sure you put your address in there so we can get those t-shirts to you. I will also be hosting office hours right after our program ends for those interested in learning more about our May 3rd activation. It's only about a half hour or so. During our first homeroom for the good section of our good, the bad, and the ugly, we talked about how students at Little Rock Central High School, the same high school that the Little Rock Nine desegregated in 1957, were suing the state of Arkansas for its ban on critical race theory. Now, signed into law by Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders 1 year ago, Arkansas's LEARNS Act prohibits public schools in the state from teaching diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as critical race theory. We were not surprised. Well, today, we have one of the students joining us. So please welcome a high school freshman, Central High School freshman, Sadie Bell Reynolds, up on the stage to join me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am so excited to have you. I'm just absolutely delighted because we have you on. You're a young person and you're actively involved and you are part of this lawsuit. So can you first just explain to us why you enjoyed AP African American Studies class and how the LEARNS Act affects your experience in this class?
Well, first of all, I love this course. This is my first ever AP course, and I've always enjoyed history. And the thing I love about the AP African American Studies course is that you get to see history through more than just the white Europeans male's perspective. And since African American history is a shared history around the United States, it's not just African Americans' history, it's also my history as an American. And so I think it's great that in this class that we get to learn better and do better just by learning new events that have happened in the past that just aren't covered in many other history courses. And as the more perspectives that we look at, the better people we become and the more that we are less likely to repeat mistakes. And the LEARNS Act, for some reason, likes to cover all, like, they just don't want any students to really learn about some of these perspectives because they're scared about indoctrination and stuff, which is not happening in this course at all. I mean, I'm not a hater of America at all. My dad's a retired Navy commander. I mean, we're very patriotic in a way, but it's not, this class is just amazing, and I love the fact that we get to learn from so many perspectives.
I like the way you put down this understanding of this notion that African American history is American history. It is our shared American story. Now, Sadie Bell, we often hear from those who are advancing this sort of legislation around the country that it is necessary because white students are being indoctrinated or they're being made to feel shame in these courses. Well, apparently you're not feeling that, Sadie Bell. So can you talk about exactly what's happening? Are they indoctrinating you? Are they shaming you in these classes, learning that African American history is American history?
Well, no, I do not feel indoctrinated at all. I think it's so silly, but I think it's crazy that the LEARNS Act just censors all this information that we already kind of know that happened. We know slavery has happened. We know if civil rights has happened. And it's just putting a magnifying glass onto the stuff that we never got to learn about in other history courses and past and sometimes even future education. And the LEARNS Act only with censoring some of the topics in this course makes students have to go on to online resources that might not always be reliable, such as TikTok, Google, Instagram, to find out stuff about our country that we are curious about. And it's just not fair that we can't learn these in these high school classes, and instead we have to go online and go look for information.
Thank you, Sadie Bell, for joining us and for doing what they call making some good trouble down there in Arkansas.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, we think it's important here at Freedom to Learn to not just uplift the voices of teachers and professors and activists, but also to uplift the voices and experiences of young people. So we were very happy to have Sadie Bell join us. Now, if you're still wondering what you can do to take action this May 3rd, I want to give you some quick tips to make it simple to get involved. Whether you have 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days to spare, kind of my 4x5 moment for you. So if you have 5 seconds, just 5 seconds only, you can go on and you can like and share a post from AAPF on social media. If you're already on X, if you're already on Instagram, just go and like and share one of our posts. Or you can text the registration link for next week's virtual rally, which is next Thursday night, to your biggest group chat. Do that if you just have 5 seconds. Well, if you have 5 minutes, you can share content using the Freedom to Learn social media toolkit. You can send an email invitation to 10 friends for any planned National Day of Action event on May 3rd. Or, my favorite, as a radio host, you could call into your local radio station on May 3rd and uplift the National Day of Action, particularly if you have a conservative station. They could be talking about the weather, you break in as a guest and talk about the fact that it's the National Day of Action. That's if you have 5 minutes. Now, what if you have 5 hours? Well, you can review and share the Freedom to Learn, the FTL activation guide. You can watch a past Freedom to Learn homeroom on YouTube and then share the resource with people in your community. Or you can follow AAPF on Instagram to get updates for the underground radio coverage of the May 2nd virtual rally and the National Day of Action, and then plan a live listening party. Yes, next week on Thursday, May 2nd, the day of our virtual rally, we're going to have on the ground, underground radio coverage. You can be a part of that. And when I give you the either or, it can also be an and both. That's if you have 5 hours. Now, what if you have 5 days? Because we're into the countdown to the National Day of Action. So if you have 5 days and you want to start on Monday, here's what you can do. You can organize your own event using the Freedom to Learn activation guide to invite friends to an in-person meetup on May 3rd using what we call plug and play videos, sample agendas, invitation. There's still time to get an event started if you got 5 days to plan it out. Another one, which is really easy to do, is think about planning a virtual or an in-person Freedom Readers Circle book club or readathon of one of your favorite banned books. That's if you have 5 days. These are all the ways that we can get involved. Now, next week at our virtual rally, as we start moving toward the Freedom Summer 2024 activations, I'll tell you what you can do over the next 5 weeks. I want to turn our attention now to another activation spotlight. Before with Sadie Bell, I had someone who was in high school. I now have someone who is attending college. Talia Baptiste from Morgan State University joining me here on the stage. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining me. I wanted you to come up here because we think about activations. Last year, you organized 2 busloads of Morgan State University students to go up to New York. I think you left at like 6 a.m. in the morning or something to go to our activation rally in New York. Can you talk about why it's important for us to engage college students in the May 3rd National Day of Action?
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for having me. For college students and specifically, and for me as a Morgan State student, which is an HBCU, it's so important for us to really be on the front lines of this because we are the next generation of students who will be shaping our society in the future. So we need to be empowered with the knowledge, and we need to be empowered with what Freedom to Learn is and why it's so important. And just because we are an HBCU, people might think that it might not directly impact us, but if anything, it impacts us a lot more because it is our history that is, being threatened to be erased. So it's really important for us college students to remain active and remain on the front lines when discussing this issue.
Oh, I love that. I want to say we call you our secret sauce event organizer because you get students stirred up because for this year, you're actually organizing another 2 buses so you can head down to Washington, D.C. for our activation rally in front of the Library of Congress. What we're trying to find out, Talia, is can you quickly tell us 2 things you're doing to get students excited about signing up to head down to the rally in Washington, D.C. next Friday?
Yeah, of course. So, Morgan State, we're actually in the middle of our I Love Morgan Week right now, which for us is kind of like homecoming part 2 in the spring. So I'm really trying to use the momentum from this week's events to really get students excited and activated for the Freedom to Learn rally in DC next week. Yes, we're having fun right now, but we should also be having fun in DC. So that's kind of, using the momentum from those events to try to get students excited about May 3rd. And then also that I'm reaching out to our academic departments here. We're talking about education, right? We're talking about the freedom and the right to learn. So naturally, we really should include our academic departments, which means our faculties, our deans, our professors, all of the sorts, to really get them activated and well, and in turn get students activated.
Thank you so much, Talia Baptiste. I look forward to seeing you next Friday at the National Day of Action, the Activation Rally. And folks, she's going to be in her swag t-shirt. You can get that t-shirt. Yes, see how I connected all back for you. You can get that t-shirt by filling out that form. First 50 people can show up like Talia in the Freedom to Learn t-shirt and be a part of the activation. Go ahead click on that QR code and make sure that you hit that send button. And we can't think it through, folks. We can't imagine what you want. You got to click the send button and make sure you get your t-shirt. We are looking forward to this National Day of Action. And I want to toss it back to Professor Kimberly Crenshaw for some closing remarks.
All right, Dr. K, you are on those t-shirts. You are on mission, on point. Y'all heard that? Thank you, Dr. K. It's such a delight to hear from our young people who are taking up the baton and running this next lap. So our goal is to give it to them in a better position than what we received it in. So thank you so much for joining us. Kay, I'm so motivated after this program tonight. And I'm just looking at the comments from all across the country. I see that all of you out there are motivated as well. So look, before we close out tonight's program, I'm going to remind you one more time, May 3rd is just around the corner. And we've been hearing all night long about how this National Day of Action and the launch of Freedom Summer 2024 is an absolute necessity at this time. Look, these attacks on DEI are attacks against our civil rights. This is what Freedom Summer 1964 was about, and now 60 years later, this is what Freedom Summer 2024 has to be about. The moment to act is now, and we hope all of you will join us in this fight. So as the drumbeat continues to roll towards the next Friday's Day of Action, on next Thursday, which would be a week from today, we're going to have a virtual rally. It's going to be with some of the biggest names in civil rights, from leaders of the Big 8, civil rights organizations, to elected officials. So who do we have on tap? We've got Reverend Siobhan Arline Bradley, who you just heard from tonight. I know you want to hear more of her. We've got Melanie Campbell from the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. We've got Damon Hewitt from the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. We got Mark Morial from the National Urban League. We've got the Reverend Al Sharpton from the National Action Network, and Maya Wiley from the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. We're also pleased to announce that Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley will also be joining us next Thursday. So you need to be there, and you need to bring 5 people, 10 people with you. We need to have the house full